are included in the report. The first proposal is that we would like to ensure inclusion at the planning table and throughout implementation in state processes. We know that the plan has moved out of the federal process to some degree and that states are already taking up the state implementation drafting. We believe that communities need to be included before documents are in final draft form, before they go out for public comment. They need to be included from the get-go and meaningfully. We believe that there needs to be data, definitions, and analysis to address environmental justice very specifically in the plan. And this would involve equity analysis to map out where vulnerable communities exist in each state, and partnering with communities on the ground to better understand the existing impacts that would be affected by the plan. We do not think, again, that the plan should incentivize dirty extractive energy sources. And more specifically, again, not allowing biomass and waste incineration to qualify as non-emitting sources. And as a credit to the EPA, the FIP and the model rules appropriately exclude most forms of biomass and waste incineration and suggests that states should do the same. We believe strong partnership between regional administrations and states to ensure that that actually happens is very necessary. We do not think that waste incineration should qualify for emission rate credits or other credits under the plan. We also would like to strengthen worker protections and do more to support a just transition. The model rules encourage, but they don't require, that jobs created by investments in energy efficiency and renewable energy are all good jobs. We believe that should be required in the states, that priority for jobs and for the quality jobs should go to the communities that have already been impacted adversely by these dirty emitting sources, and that communities are actually excellent partners in determining how those jobs could look, what contracting looks like, what quality jobs are, where training could happen, and many more specific items of job creation as a result of this plan, which has been touted as one of the biggest positives out of the plan. We think more could be done in that area. We want to ensure that low-income communities benefit from energy efficiency and renewable energy. And more specifically, in terms of the CEIP, we would like for it to prioritize and maximize those investments. We would like a requirement that all states engage in CEIP. And although states are now tasked with creating SIPs and CEIPs out for comment, we believe firmly that decoupling the CEIP from the trading requirements that it would generate is really important. Again, because we don't believe cap and trade actually benefits environmental justice communities and can create opportunities for existing harms to be increased. And finally, we would like to strengthen renewable energy provisions. That means renewable energy in low-income communities. It means removing barriers to community-based ownership and generation of energy. It means that unclaimed allowances should support just transition opportunities for those communities already most burdened. And it means that voluntary taking up of renewable energy projects and credits should first prioritize those communities as siting locations. And finally, although states are now tasked with creating SIPs, Region 5 and the federal EPA still has a role to play in evaluation and enforcement of environmental justice provisions for vulnerable communities, and pieces of the federal rule that are strongly encouraged for states to take up. And we believe that they would make a strong partner, and you all have a strong role to continue to play, even though it's in the state's hands to form a draft plan. And that's it for the overview of the report, and again, any questions that you have, please direct them to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We were going to have Dr. Cecilia Martinez from SEED give some policy overview, but thanks to modern technology, she just texted me to say that she's comfortable with everything Juliana just said, which was pretty much her talking points, so she's going to forgo her turn. So thank you, Dr. Martinez from SEED. So what we wanted to do now was give each of the states an opportunity to speak to the Clean Power Plan and what this means for them. And so I think what we'll do is start with Illinois, if that's okay. And really, I just wanted to touch on some of the points that Juliana raised. One of the amazing things that we have in Illinois is the Environmental Justice Commission. And I think one thing that we're really looking to do is to ensure that that commission can work hand in hand with both the state IEPA, but also Region 5, as Juliana mentioned, to ensure that we have a robust EJ analysis, to ensure we have a real reduction in harm, but more importantly, to ensure that there is real inclusion of not just Chicago, but really all of the communities in Illinois. We've been very fortunate to be participating in calls around the state where EJ communities and vulnerable communities are coming out to talk about how do I get involved, how do I find out. I may not agree with everything, but at least what we want to ensure is that no community can say we did not know about this process. And so again, I think from our perspective, any partnership that we can create with the region, I think will really help out. The state is in a very interesting predicament as the state of Illinois. So I think any resources or any way that we can get the assistance of Region 5 in this matter would be greatly appreciated. I'd like to turn it over to Ben Ishibashi from the National People's Action.
Thank you. My name is Ben Ishibashi. I'm an organizer with National People's Action. We are a national network of over 35 grassroots, community-based racial and economic justice organizations, including the Illinois Indiana Regional Organizing Network, whose leaders are here today. We at NPA wholeheartedly endorse the Climate Justice Alliance's Our Power Plan. And our reasons for doing so are fairly simple. As has already been mentioned, communities of color and low-income communities who are often the least responsible for the climate crisis are disproportionately more likely to suffer from poor health, natural disaster, displacement, and even debt because of our dirty energy economy, and that's simply not right. At the same time, structural racism and entrenched inequality ensure that these communities are at least able to recover and adapt to the impacts of carbon pollution and climate change. And again, that's not right. So while the Clean Power Plan represents an important first step in reducing emissions, it currently doesn't do nearly enough to ensure protection or environmental justice for our communities. The Our Power Plan represents a clear and specific roadmap for Clean Power Plan implementation that overcomes these existing shortcomings to ensure that low-income communities and communities of color truly are empowered and benefit from CPP implementation. We urge the US EPA to adopt the Our Power Plan's recommendations for the federal implementation plan and hold state implementation plans to the standards laid out within. In particular, we urge you to pay attention to the Our Power Plan's proposals regarding meaningful community inclusion, accessible green job creation that's targeted towards communities of color, and the strengthening and making mandatory of the Clean Energy Incentive Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. I'd like to turn it over to Indiana. We have Ms. Denise Abdul-Rahman from NAACP.
Thank you, Administrator, for taking time to listen to us. And I'm just going to give a brief example of what it is on the ground on what we are working with as it relates to having our voices included. We recently, the NAACP Indiana, which we have over 5,000 members across the great state of Indiana, we're a state with 80% coal emissions. And we have a governor that's suing against the Clean Power Plan. When meeting with the Commissioner Comer, a new commissioner, Carol Comer, we asked if she believed that environmental justice existed, that there were communities that were disproportionately impacted within the state of Indiana. She indicated no, that she didn't believe that there were disproportionalities. We asked if we provided proof, would she then, in fact, agree that perhaps, there is some injustice. She said yes. Then we referenced, well, what about Executive Order 12898 that says that people of color are disproportionately impacted? At that point in time, she indicated that we were kind of trying to pick one group of people over another, and that she no longer felt comfortable with the conversation. So if we are sitting at a state implementation plan, how can we entrust, or what will Region 5 do to help states like Indiana to assure that environmental justice is included when we have a commissioner that doesn't even believe that environmental injustice even exists? So now I'm going to just turn over for more about process and next steps and information around Indiana. We have Dr. Carlton Waterhouse. He's an environmental justice professor and also a former EPA attorney.
Thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us today, and I want to echo substantively the comments that have been already advanced with regards to the Clean Power Plan. But I want to take a moment specifically to talk about the commitment from the agency and from the region with regards to its obligations under Executive Order 12898, as well as Title VI. Right, so we recognize the Clean Power Plan focuses on low-income communities, but of course the executive order would expect or would direct that there should be an identification and addressing of any disproportionately high and adverse human health and environmental effects based on low-income as well as minority populations. Right. So there seems that there needs to be, beyond what the Clean Power Plan has committed to, still some level of environmental justice analysis which takes place at the regional level to assess whether or not the implementation of the Clean Power Plan through its FIP as well as through the SIPs is actually going to have some adverse and disproportionate impact on minority populations as well as low-income populations. Further, I think to the degree that there's this delegated authority to the states to actually develop state implementation plans, there also remains a Title VI obligation on behalf of the region and the agency to make sure that the criteria and methods of administering these plans do not have the effect of discriminating based on race, color, or national origin as laid out in the Title VI regulations for the agency. And so my primary, substantive point of advocacy here is just on behalf of these organizations to say, what are the mechanisms that the agency and the Regency has put in place, have put in place for analyzing the state implementation plans to make sure that those plans will not have disproportionate